This is my bottom third video of my ranking of all the MCU and DCEU movies. Hi, my name is Nathan and I talk about a bunch of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share your picks for the bottom third of all the MCU and DCEU ranked together. This is part one of a three-part series I'm going to be doing, ranking all the MCU and DCEU movies. Be sure to like and subscribe, it really does help a lot. And with that said, let's get started with the ranking. Coming in at number 43 is Justice League. This is a very cynical superhero project that had so much behind-the-scenes trouble. Therefore, it's a barely watchable film with bad CGI effects. The story feels cobbled together and clunky, and this, to me, is the worst of how directors can be swapped out very randomly, and the worst of studio executives ruining a film that could have been great. Number 42 is Suicide Squad, another film that had behind-the-scenes trouble a lot. It relies on pop music for character development, and they literally have bullet points pop up on the screen in order to introduce us to our characters. David Ayer has been open that this was not his version of the film, even though he did direct it, but the movie still has a bunch of blandness throughout it and a generic villain, and so it's not very enjoyable. Number 41, Thor: The Dark World, a mediocre MCU film that can't decide if it wants to be all these different genres combined together. And it has an exposition-heavy film, but a confusing plot at the same time. Malekith is easily one of the blandest villains we've gotten in the MCU. This movie is memorable only for how forgettable it is with the rest of this franchise. Kicking off the top 40 is Captain Marvel, a very tonally uneven film, and it's very confusing how our lead Carol Danvers is structured, because she's written to be just feisty and cocky, and people are telling her what to do and how to think. Her powers are even questionable, her character is not compelling. It's amusing enough, but it's just not all that watchable to me. Next up here is Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie that I initially liked out of the theater, but it has not aged well at all. Taika Waititi took the goofy sliders, cranked them up all the way to 11. Gore is in the wrong movie, and there's a bunch of wasted potential. You get screaming goats and a love triangle between two hammers and a man. It felt like a parody of Thor. It could have been so much better, and it's very disappointing. Number 38, Iron Man 2, a rushed sequel to set up the Avengers. It has a great cast, but there's too many plot lines going on, and it's pretty light on action for an Iron Man movie. There are 3 action sequences in this entire film. This movie also had some production troubles where the director wanted a bigger gap from the first and the second film's release dates, but in the end, it just doesn't work, and it also could have been so much better. 37, Eternals. Of all of the MCU movies, this might be the best visually looking one, but that's not to say that it's good, because it's very ambitious. And it would have worked better as maybe a 9-episode Disney Plus TV show, where they had more time to develop all the characters, but as a movie, there's just too many subplots, and some of the character motivations are even weird, especially with the deviants, and so for me, this one just did not work. Number 36 is Spider-Man: Far From Home. Now, my hot take in the MCU is that I do not like Spider-Man: Far From Home because stuff like the villain is just the Mandarin from Iron Man 3 all over again. The main plot involves Tony Stark giving his glasses to a high schooler without instructions. That's confusing. It's fun enough, but it's just distasteful thinking about these characters' decisions and what they do in this movie. To me, I did not like this movie. Number 35, Wonder Woman 1984. This movie feels a lot like these classic superhero films from the 80s and 70s. It explores Diana in a different way, but it has logic and plot issues and has aged poorly with time. Still, I enjoy the film. It's very watchable. I could just sit down, watch it, and enjoy it, but it has not aged well, and so that's what really hurt the film for me. Number 34 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This might be the most lighthearted MCU movie, and there's a bunch of fun antics that comes with that. But there is a frustrating plot and villain, as you realize they could just sit down and have a conversation and the movie would be over, but then the movie wouldn't happen, and so they don't do that. And also, another villain in this movie is some generic arms dealer that you don't care much about, and it doesn't stand out within the rest of the MCU. Still, this is a fun enough addition to this franchise. Number 33, The Incredible Hulk. This one has probably always felt like the black sheep of the MCU, but it's a fun standalone Hulk movie if you just take it on its own terms. There's some great action sequences where each of the action sequences are different from one another and stand out. There's interesting characters in Edward Norton's Bruce Banner. It's not an incredible movie, but it's a good enough Hulk movie for what it has to offer. 32. Thor. This movie has some great legacy actors that just introduced to the MCU in this movie, but this is also another film that hasn't aged particularly well. The first half goes from Shakespearean drama with no jokes to slapstick fish out of water comedy on Earth, and it feels out of tone with the two pieces together. Still, there's some fun to be had, some nice themes in the mix, but it hasn't aged well, and I'm probably going to pick something else if I'm going to watch something in the MCU. Number 31 is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. This might be the most ambitious DCEU film as it explores how others would see Superman after the events of Man of Steel. I've always enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. He's just a nice little Punisher Batman in this franchise, but it didn't have a proper setup to lead to the payoff. And that's what's so frustrating, is that it does so many things great. It would have been much better if it had the proper setup, but not quite there yet. We'll close off the bottom third with Avengers Age of Ultron. This movie doubles the amount of the first film, but more doesn't always mean better. There's some awesome action in this movie that's just as good as the first Avengers. There's also a bunch of great moments, but the information presented to the audience isn't presented properly in a way that the audience could properly process it, and it comes off confusing. Still, there's some great moments, characters, and everything, but it's not as good as those other three Avengers movies. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.